Red's Fly Shop, this is Bob. How may I help you today?
Look at that. Woo! Hey, welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's Joe here with a product review on a reel. Woohoo, product review. A lot of you are saying who cares, but if you are in the market for a tight line nymphing reel, I think it's a very worthy product to discuss. And I'm actually gonna set this up for my own rod. At the back end of the video, we'll talk about setup. So it's the Lamson Guru E, and essentially it's a Lamson reel built in Ketchum, Idaho, purpose-built for Euro nymphing, which is excellent. And what makes it purpose-built for Euro nymphing, or tight line nymphing as I like to call it. In fact, I'm just gonna help settle this terminology. Let's just call it tight line fishing, because on these technical rods, these long 10 and 11-foot 2 and 3 weights, we're fishing crayfish and stoneflies and jig sculpins and leeches. We're not always nymphing, but we're always tight lining. So I like to just call it tight lining, and we're not always just drifting things too. We'll actually cast those little jig sculpins and leeches. We might bounce them through the rocks and then throw them over into a back eddy and strip them and swing them and do all this other stuff. So tight lining, let's just get that straight. So what makes this purpose-built for tight lining? So with tight lining, we're often running long leaders or just straight mono, which is what I'm gonna set up on this, just straight mono line for a couple of reasons. And when we have a reel that is a fully enclosed design like this, the skinny little mono line is contained in there, and then it can't get pinched like in a traditional reel between the reel and the spool, and it's way less messy, it doesn't tangle as much, etc. It's just easier to handle full frame design. So full frame design. The other thing is with mono, you don't need a lot of capacity, so the reel doesn't have to be wide. You can have this really nice skinny profile like that, and then that thin line can tends to stack on top of itself nice and neat. So it is kind of nice having a thin profile. And then the other attribute of this is this in the story with this reel is the weight system. And I'm just gonna run through the weight system real quick. If you can't figure out the weight system, you have no business Euro nymphing, so tight lining. It's super, super simple. But the weight system, now the reason for the weight system is with these longer rods, a lot of times, if we have an ultralight reel, the rod tip just wants to be low. And then we're constantly holding it under tension in your hand. And when it's under tension, rods aren't as sensitive. And when I first got into tight line fishing, I didn't think much of reel balance. I do think quite a bit of reel balance now. I don't scrutinize over it. I don't sit there and tweak it and balance it. I just get something where I can set the rod on my index finger and the rod will balance, in my natural fishing position, and the rod will balance at, say, a 10-degree up angle. And that requires oftentimes a little more weight in the reel to get that balance correct. So rather than build just one heavy reel to kind of rule them all, Lamson starts with a lightweight reel, and I think it's 4.9 ounces, and then we can start to add weight. And it's kind of funny, they actually use a pill jar. And it's kind of cool to contain the weights. And so the weights come in here. And I'm not gonna go through a long detailed deal on how to put the weights in. I'm just gonna show you how easy it is. So I pop the spool off. I got a little tool here that helps take this this poly deal off. And actually this is I'm just gonna show you how easy it is to change left and right too. I'm not gonna go through long detailed instructions. If I was changing left hand to right hand, I would just flip this one-way needle bearing system over and put it back in the opposite direction, and I just switched the reel from left hand to right hand retrieve. And then it takes, because the tolerances, it just takes a little bit to kind of work it back in there. There I go, done. And I just switched it from left hand to right hand retrieve. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the weights on. Comes with a little tiny rubber O-ring just to keep it from rattling and moving. Put that rubber O-ring on, and I'm gonna put this on a pretty long rod. So I'm gonna take the biggest weight, which is 1.5 ounces. I'm gonna put the biggest weight in there. I'm gonna put my thread cover or my bearing cover back on there like that, just like so, super easy. I just added weights to my reel and changed the retrieve. So, oh my gosh, how easy was that? So there I go. I got a US built reel, Lamson quality, now purpose built for tight line fishing. Let me show you how I'm gonna set this up. I'm gonna go spin the reel, spin my backing on, my mono, all that, and I'll come back and just talk just really lightly just about leader build on this reel as well. But that's the basic overview. Continue watching if you wanna see the line system I'm gonna put on this particular reel right here. So here I've got my setup, and I just put about 50 to 75 yards of backing on there, and I like to run a little different color backing than my running line, and then I'll tag these products. What I put on here is a 25-pound slick shooter mono, and I'm setting this reel up, at least today, specifically for streamer fishing with my technical rod. And I tied just a little double surgeon's loop in the end of that slick shooter, and then I looped a loop on a piece of 1X cider material. And I like the 1X cider material, especially for late fall or low light conditions when I'm fishing crayfish and jig streamers and such. And I don't have like a real hard specific formula. I mean, I'm constantly switching and tweaking and stuff, but I've got about 2.5 feet of the cider on. And then at the end of that cider, I just put one tag, you can see, and then I can see the end of my cider. So got a tippet ring on there, and then from there down, all I need to do is run, say, 4 feet of like 4X fluorocarbon to my little jig streamer, and I'll start with that. Now, where the magic happens on this, and the reason I have it set up, and I've done some other videos here, is I'll take my 10-foot 8-inch Beulah Platinum technical rod, and I'll actually turn that into a little single-hand Spey rod. And so what I did is I left that loop on the end so then I can easily, and you could make whatever leader you want. I'm not proposing this is like the system that works for everybody. But I can take a shooting head like this, and I'll just do this real time. Should just take me a moment. And say I want to mix, some swinging streamers with my Spey head and Euro nymphing. So a lot of times I'll tight line or check nymph or whatever heck you want to call it upstream, and then when I'm done, then I want to swing. So I can take my cider off in a loop-to-loop. I can roll this guy up, roll, put that in my pocket or a little envelope or something. And now I've got this shooting line that's really meant for space shooting, and I've got this shooting head, and it's a little different than a traditional loop-to-loop system, because normally this loop would be super big, but I don't want it super big because I'm doing some technical fishing with it. And now I can put this head on, and I don't know, you can watch the video and see how long it takes me, but it just takes a moment to pop that cider off. And now I've got a little single-hand Spey system, 175 grain head or 150 grain head, depending on the rod you've got. And normally, I've already got the sink tip on there, but then it's the same process I would repeat. I would just loop my sink tip on there, tie a little streamer back on, and now I can whoop, whoop, whoosh, I can single-hand Spey and swing some streamers. So my routine would be, if I'm fishing on foot, I might work my way up with just a tight line technical fishing, either with little streamers or nymphs, whatever, and then I will turn around and I'll swing my way back down. If I was fishing like little itty bitty stuff, like more traditional tight line nymphing stuff, little perdigons and midge and stuff like that, I'm going to run a little longer, lighter leader system, and there's lots of information on that. I will do some kind of updated videos as I've learned over the last several years. Pay attention to this statement. I've learned not only what works for me, but I've learned what works for other people that we interact with right behind me here in the shop. And our shop is there. Literally, I'm looking at the river and people launching a boat right there. So we interact with real anglers. There are so many great YouTubers and mentors out there that write books, whether it's Devin Olson, Lance Egan, George Daniels, or three popular ones. Those guys are amazing. I mean, there's a lot of information, but sometimes what works for them doesn't necessarily work for the neophyte or the weekend warrior that's just getting into this. So I'll share some more updated leader information, but This is more of like my tight line jig streamer fishing system that I can also audible into a little single-handed Spey system. So I can work my way up with my technical nymph system, and then I can swing my way down with a little Skagit system and send little streamers to the far side of the river and reach all that water that just would be impossible for me to get to with any other system. And so you can do it one of two ways. You can technical nymph your way up, or you can and then Spey fish your way down, or streamer fish your way down, or you can streamer fish your way down and then tech fish your way back up, either one. But that's my overview of this Lamson Guru E Reel and how I have it set up to convert to a single-handed Spey streamer system very easily by simply removing my cider material there, plugging in the shooting head, etc. So there you go. There's a look at the reel, 419 bucks, really purpose-built. I think it's a pretty solid value for the serious technical angler that wants a great reel that's built specifically for fishing mono systems on their long technical rods.